welcome. We're really excited to have everybody here today to talk about the STEP grant. My name is Kevin Mather. I'm the president of the World Trade Center in Northern California. And we're really pleased to have Mariana, Guevara, and Simona Racek with us today. We'll be talking a little bit more and introducing them in just a minute. World Trade Center in Northern California is really focused on helping businesses succeed in doing international business. It's something I'm passionate about. I spent most of my career doing international business development and sales, and I love it. And it's amazing the impact that it can have on companies and on regions. It's a fabulous thing for us to be investing time and energy in. And World Trade Center Northern California really wants to help international businesses by doing three things. We provide access to education, training resources, and connections. And today is an excellent example of really providing information, actionable information to help you grow your international business. I'd like to take and thank our funding partners, the Northern California SBDC Small Business Development Center. It's through their partnership that we're able to bring you today's session. We'll have two other sessions that we'll be presenting shortly, and I'll put the registration link in the chat window. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing an introduction to importing. We'll have Deep Sen Gupta, who is a certified customs broker out of the Bay Area and a trainer, who will be really talking about the fundamentals of importing. So if you've ever thought about importing, or if you have new staff and you want to give them a background in importing, import logistics, excellent session for that. Once again, that's a free webinar. And then in late October, we'll have a fundamentals of international e-commerce. Over the last few years, international e-commerce has just exploded, as Simona knows very well. And so we'll be talking about how companies can either do direct business to consumer or business to business international e-commerce and some of the fundamentals of that. Like I say, I'll put both of those in the chat window. I'd like to introduce now our panelists. First, we have from the Governor's Office of Business, or GO-Biz, Mariana Guevara. Mariana works as the International Trade Program Specialist for GO-Biz, providing STEP support to California's small businesses. So the STEP grant is her area of expertise. Prior to her current position, she was the International Business Development Specialist at the Sacramento Minority Business Development Agency Export Center. Before that, Mariana completed an internship at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Commercial Service, helping American companies increase their exports to Mexico. Before interning abroad, Mariana gained international experience working with U.S. Commercial Service here in Sacramento. I'd also like to welcome Simona Racek. Simona works with the SBDC here in California and works with clients in the private and public sectors, including the Los Angeles Regional Small Business Development Center, Ventura Economic Development Collaborative, World Trade Center San Diego, and ourselves. We're really lucky to have her. She is also the president of Women in International Trade, the Orange County chapter, which is a nonprofit organization really focused on helping more women be successful in international trade. In addition, Simona, the reason we're excited to have her here as well, she's helped over 150 companies prepare STEP grant applications. And so she can really be an excellent resource to help you really get down into the nitty-gritty and applying for that STEP grant. With that, I'd like to take and turn it over to Mariana. Oh, and a couple of housekeeping things. If there's any questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll handle those all at the end, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kevin. I just had to quickly unmute myself. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'll go ahead and just get started. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's get to it. So today I'll be talking about the California STEP program. It is funded in part by the Small Business Administration. It seeks to increase the number of eligible small business exporters, as well as increase the volume of goods and services they export. There are two portions to the STEP grant. We have the STEP events, which are pre-selected activities, which we encourage California companies to participate in. And then we have the STEP Export Voucher, which is where the companies themselves propose their export promotion activities for consideration. For the first time ever, the California State Trade Expansion Program will be fully overseen and administered solely by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So we're very excited to really be the sole organizer and administrator of the STEP grant. Jumping right into it. So how does a company qualify? So first of all, your company has to be, I'm just checking the chat to make sure everyone can hear me fine, but your company must be organized as a for-profit enterprise, be organized and registered and operating in the United States, registered to do business in California and in good standing. So this means if you're a corporation or LLC, you must have an active status with the Secretary of State. You can do that by just checking in, Googling California Secretary of State and entering your company's website name, and your entity number would pop up. If you're a sole proprietor, this means that you would have active registration with the respective city or county. So we do review that and we do check that you're in good standing. You must satisfy the SBA small business eligibility standards. These are determined by your NAICS code. So when you submit an application, you inform us of your 6-digit NAICS code. We then review that against what the limit is for the number of employees or the number of annual receipts. So majority of these companies, as long as they have less than 250, they tend to be eligible. But if you ever have doubts, feel free to check in with us. Is exporting goods or services of U.S. origin or that have at least 51% U.S. content. We followed the U.S. commercial services definition of 51% U.S. content. We have it linked on our website, so you can do the calculation to see if you would be eligible. But if you ever have doubts if you would be meet that requirement, feel free to check in with us. Additionally, must be in business for at least 1 year at the time of the STEP-funded export activity takes place. If you are a startup company that has less than a year, you can still check in with us and we can introduce you to other programs that you may be a better fit for. And then we always encourage you to visit our STEP website. We have our program guidelines, which go into in-depth detail as to the STEP qualifications, as there's also additional things. For example, if you own multiple companies, you can only apply to one of the companies. So all that information would be on our website. So STEP events. So the STEP events are the pre-selected export promotion activities designed to connect California exporters to emerging global markets. This is for eligible companies to participate at a reduced cost. And it's very important to note that this does not subtract from the funding that companies are eligible from the export voucher. So you can apply to STEP events and the export voucher at the same time. Yes, so here it says STEP events differs from an export voucher as there is a set of funds put aside for the specific event. So we always want to encourage companies to review the events that we have available for consideration. And these are just some of the upcoming events that we have. So the CEO program at Medica 2022, I believe we have just 2 spots left, and this is organized by the U.S. Commercial Service, China Clean Beauty Products Showcase and Seminar, Trade Winds, Indo-Defense Trade Mission, that's with the U.S. Commercial Service as well, Arab Health, Avalon, Australia, the Japan Clean Energy Trade Mission and World Smart Energy Week, Info Security, and Paris Air Show. And I believe there's more to come as well. All right, so what people are here to learn, the export voucher. So the export voucher was formerly known as ICEP, or the Individual Company Export Promotion Program. We've increased the limit from $5,000 to $10,000. Just from the feedback that we received, and it is now to offset 75% of the approved expenses. This means if a company pays $10,000 for the international trade show, and we see that the invoice, the proof of activity, the proof of payment from the bank statements, we would reimburse 75%, being $7,500. If a company pays $950 for gold fee services, we would reimburse $712.50. And again, that's up to the 10,000 limit. So if a company pays $14,000, we would reimburse up to the $10,000 limit, having it be within the 75%. Things to note: the application is competitive. Not everyone will be awarded, especially this time around. We have lots of applications. We haven't even gone to the month of October, and we're already at 100. So the more applications that come in, the more competitive it gets. So do keep that in mind. STEP applications must be submitted in advance of the planned activity. We recommend at least 15 days, and the applications cannot be for retroactive activities. The reason we recommend 15 days is because it takes us about 14 days to get back to you with the notification of your status. So we have a team of 3 to 4 people that are our STEP review panel. They meet every 2 weeks to review the merits of the application and then decide on the best applications. The rest will be waitlisted and then considered again in the next STEP review panel. Okay, and our latest application period information will always be published on our website under program details. For example, we are currently in round 1. We are accepting applications for that are taking place, between October 1st through December 31st of this year. We do want to have the caveat here that please note that we anticipate a high volume of applications during round 1 and round 2, depending on if funding is available or the volume of applications received. Application periods may be extended. So if we, for example, do not receive enough applications, we will open round 3. But again, right now we're receiving a lot of applications, so keep that in mind. Okay, allowable expenses. So under the export voucher, a company can propose several activities, and I'm just going to go ahead and briefly name some of them. So international trade shows or trade missions. This is going to be for the registration of the trade show, the booth raw space, the booth build out. We do not reimburse for travel, lodging, or meals. Domestic trade shows or trade missions must have international presence, capped at $5,000. Right now, we are not prioritizing domestic trade shows or trade missions. We are focusing on those that are international. So something to keep in mind. U.S. commercial service products. U.S. commercial service is a great partner of ours, and we want to advocate for their services. So gold key, initial market check, international partner search, always great activities to propose. Website globalization and e-commerce. So if you're translating your website into another language, if you're doing targeted SEO for another country. E-commerce, if you're doing Amazon Canada, the hosting fees for that, I believe, Alibaba, Tmall, those are all reimbursable expenses. And then just to also keep going through the list, compliance testing, sample shipping. This is going to be for shipping samples to distributors or shipping your product to the trade show. It does not include shipping for a sales order. So anything that can be seen as a business operation versus a export promotion activity would not be considered. So also keep that in mind. Intellectual property, international marketing material. This is going to be translating your documents for the marketing. If you're translating a brochure, international marketing material, social media for targeting another country, those type of things, export research tools, and then of course, XM insurance policy premium, which we have some XM folks on this webinar today. Oh, and just to keep in mind, on our program guidelines, as I discussed previously, we have very detailed information. So in within these categories, we talk what is eligible and what is not eligible. So there are some caveats. For example, international marketing material, we do not reimburse for printing costs, and that's just a guidance from SBA themselves. I talked about the U.S. commercial service products that we reimburse. And then just a brief guideline on the timeline. So a company must submit their application. It is then reviewed and selected for funding, and the company is notified in about 14 days. The company then execute the activities that have been approved, specifically those activities, and then they must provide the invoice, a detailed invoice, proof of payment, and proof of activity within 14 days of completing the activity. So the company has to spend the funds and then provide proof that the activity took place and provide all the required documentation. The GO-Biz team then reviews and approves the final submission, and we issue a physical check, which takes about 45 to 60 days, just because there is a good amount of checks and balances that must go on the state side. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead and go to the portal side. So I'm going to try to go through this section briefly to allow some time for Simona to also talk about the application. So the STEP portal application must be submitted online via our online portal at step.business.ca.gov. Applicants must first create an account by selecting create an account, entering their information, and emailing a key, which would look like this. It is important to know that if you do not receive a key, we just want you to check your email spam or junk folder. And if you have any issues, we have the application portal guide that talks through some ways to go around it, but happy to be a resource. The STEP portal application. So the STEP event applications are for pre-selected events that GO-Biz has set aside funding, or there's the export voucher, which is going to be a competitive application, which eligible businesses can propose their own export promotion activities. When you're creating a new application, you must decide either the STEP event or export voucher. The applicant will then be asked to confirm that the business meets the program eligibility criteria. Again, detailed information about the eligibility criteria can be found on the program guidelines. And then the applicant must indicate if they received past funding. Receiving past funding will not make you ineligible, but we will prioritize those companies that are new to the program. So do keep that in mind. And then the STEP portal application. Once you go into the application, you have 5 sections. So contact information, business information, export readiness assessment, proposed activities under the export voucher or event selection on the STEP event, and required supporting documents. You must go into each section and click submit section and return in order for the section to be seen as completed. Each section must be completed in order for the application to then be submitted. So you will complete all the sections, and at the bottom left, the submit button will then be made available. So very briefly on the contact, it's very straightforward, but a company must have a primary contact designated as they will be the main point of contact that GO-Biz will communicate with during the application and evaluation period. Please ensure that the email address provided for the primary contact is regularly monitored. Again, this is who we will communicate with. Authorized contacts. So contacts added in the sections are only used for communication purposes. This does not grant the contact access to the online application. So if you add multiple applications or multiple contacts in this section, it doesn't grant them access. It's just who we can potentially communicate with. If you want to grant someone access to the application, you must go to application options, application users, and then add the user to that application. Again, if you want to have this and you need some additional help, I'm happy to walk you through it on a one-by-one basis. Okay, so for the STEP portal business section, For the most part, it's very straightforward. So providing the legal business name, if you are a sole proprietor and you have a DBA or doing business as, you would enter your name under a legal business name and then the DBA on the second portion. The date that the company was established, the website, the description of products or services, number of employees, the mailing address, payment address if it differs from the mailing address. And then into this section, we have the legal entity of the business. So I previously talked about the Secretary of State. So again, if you're a corporation or LLC, you would provide us the Secretary of State's entity number. If you're a sole proprietor, you would select sole proprietor, and you would leave this section blank. Next, you would provide us the NAICS code. And so if you have any issues trying to identify your NAICS code, you can connect with someone like Simona or another technical assistance provider to help identify that NAICS code. Unfortunately, us at GO-Biz, we cannot help you or select it for you in that section specifically. Okay, annual receipts. So this is the total income plus the cost of goods sold. It's just a drop by category, so you can select the annual receipts for your company there. Again, all this information, the definitions for all these questions for the NAICS code, the annual receipts, or what constitutes social disadvantaged business, all those definitions are going to be available at our application portal user guide. So a great resource for companies. The STEP portal, so the next section is the export readiness assessment. It's made up of mainly 5 questions. And what we want to see here is that a company has experience or knowledge when it comes to exporting. This is not just a throw in the dart and see what sticks, but this is something that the company has thought through and wants to pursue seriously. So the questions we ask here is, describe the current challenges faced in exporting. List the foreign markets you are interested in exporting to. What's the demand for your product and or services in the foreign markets you intend to pursue? What is your competitive advantage in the market? Describe the market entry plan strategy and goals. And describe the business efforts in foreign sales development. Again, this section is really for us to see that, there is genuine interest in exporting. This is not just some hopes for free money, but there's thought and just a lot of effort put into going abroad. On the STEP event application, it's going to look a little different, as you would have just a section under event selection where you just go in, select the event you're interested, and that's really it. After that, you just have to submit a signed document, and that makes up your application on the STEP event. On the export voucher, it's a little bit more complicated. So the companies are able to apply up to, select up to 6 activities, and they have several categories, some of them I went over earlier. This is going to be just a lot of information. So for the proposed activities, again, this is where we want to see that your company has a plan in place, that you've already looked at the events that you're going to attend, who's going to do it for you. If you're doing international marketing, what specifically you're going to be doing for international marketing, who will be doing it for you, all that good information. So for activity category, select the activity that best matches the export promotion activity you're proposing. Estimated start date, this is where you enter the activity start date. Estimated completion date, you enter the activity completion date within the application round timeframe. So again, as a reminder, we're currently accepting activities that occur between October 1st through December 31st, 2022. Activities outside of that time frame will be rejected, as they will have to wait until round 2. Estimated expenses. So this is for the companies to really break down the expenses as they were itemized on an invoice. So if you're going to do a trade show, don't just put Cosmoprof trade show. We want to see booth space rental for $7,000, booth furnishing $3,000, catalog listing $500. And then in the next section, the requested funds, it would be up to 75% of the estimated expenses, not to go past the activity limit. So again, this goes really into the weeds, but we understand that this portion is a little bit confusing. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to be a resource for you, and we want to see successful applications. Explore activity name and details. Here you can provide a 2 to 4 sentence summary of the proposed activity for the category selected, along with a brief overview of how the funds will be used. Business growth and export strategy. Explain how the activity will support the business growth and export strategy. Country or countries. Explain which countries the activity will target and how. Website link. This is going to be for the company or the third party person or persons that will be completing these activities. So we do not reimburse for staff time. For example, if you're going to do international marketing, it can't be for a staff person that you currently have. It would have to be for a consultant or a company. So we would want to see the website of the company or person doing it. Export promotion assistance. Enter the name of the organization providing assistance to implement the activity or explain their role. So if, for example, you're working with Simona, who's helping you through website globalization, go ahead and name that Simona in that section. And then anticipated and intended outcomes. We want to see what to expect as a result of this activity. We as the administrators, we are investing in the results of this activity for your company. So we want to see the thought process behind proposing these events specifically. And then since I have you all here, I'm just going to briefly show you an application of the different proposed activities. So as you can see here, I have 3 activities that I suggested. The International Trade Show, so for China International Agricultural Machinery Exhibition, I have the estimated expenses broken down, the requested funds being 75%. In the answers, I provided the who, the what, the where, when, how, and why. So we want as much detail and just seeing that there's thought process behind each and one of these activities. We want to make sure that the activities are broken down by category. So even though we have International Trade Show here, and we're going to be doing sample shipping to this trade show. So this would be a separate activity. So for this one, it would be shipping the heavy equipment transport, what the cost would be, the requested funds. Again, who would be doing it? It would be the internationalhaulers.com, which I believe I just made up a random company name. So again, the breakdown of each activity. U.S. commercial service, same thing. What specific expense or activity will be taking place? The total, 75% of that total, and the who, what, where, how, why. I think I added an extra what in there. So that's just very quickly what the proposed activities look like or what we want it to look like. I'm almost coming up on my 30 minutes, but just some quick tips on the proposed activities. These are going to be very important for us, and we want to make sure that companies are aware of these. So propose each activity by category separately. Do not lump activities together. We have example applications on our website, which you can take a look at for reference. At this time, we cannot consider activities outside of the round 1 timeframe. Please ensure the activities fall within the appropriate timeframe, or your application will be rejected. We don't outright just reject it. We'll communicate that with you just in case it's an error or you'd like to propose something else instead, but do keep that in mind. For the question, list the estimated expenses. Please break down the cost of the specific activity you're proposing. General or vague answers will not be accepted. Remove any expenses listed as ineligible according to the program guidelines. So as I mentioned earlier, travel, lodging, meals, printing costs are not eligible. So do not add those on the estimated expenses because it will throw the calculation off. Okay, for requested funds, the amount requested should be equal up to the 75% of the estimated expense or up to the activity category, whichever is lower. And for the activity questions, as I mentioned, we want to see the who, what, where, when, how, why, the proposed activity. The answers should demonstrate that the company has a plan in action and will be able to execute it within the proposed timeframe. Lastly, the sales forecast should be a sensible number as a direct result of the activity you're proposing. So just because you translated your website, how will that result in 23 million sales? We just want to make sure that it makes sense. About to wrap up. Okay, just general step tips. Make sure to bookmark our website and check for any additional updates, especially for step events, and also subscribe to our newsletter. Review all the business resources before beginning your application. They're just great guides. I mean, I built them myself, so I'm a little bit biased, but they are a great resource. Track and follow email correspondence from STEP administrators, just because I will email for you to make edits on your applications or ask you to provide some clarification. So make sure to check your email with us. If any of the proposed plans you made change, make sure that you communicate that with us. Any delays or cancellations may impact the funding, so do keep us in the loop. And then on our website, we have the STEP program guidelines, which I discussed, the application process guide, which goes into the portal, an export voucher application sample, which I believe covers up to 5 different activities. So you have a variety of examples there. And then the STEP program training video, we are hoping to get that up and running hopefully by next week. So just a preview of the resources there, STEP program guidelines, application portal guide, step by step with arrows and everything, and then the export voucher application. So if you want to see the detail of the answers that we want to see, make sure to check that out. And that is it for me. Again, my name is Mariana Guevara. I'm the International Program Specialist for GO-Biz International Trade Team. You can reach me at step@gobiz.ca.gov or give me a call at this phone number. I tend to sometimes just answer right away or have it go to voicemail and then respond to that. So that one's a little bit hit or miss, but the email one I'll respond to eventually. I do tend to go through my emails from oldest to newest, so it might take a while to get back to you, but all this information is going to be available at export.business.ca.gov. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Woo!
Mariana, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. And we do have a number of questions. We'll hold those to the end. And now we're going to turn it over to Simona, who, like I said before, has helped 150 plus companies prepare their STEP grant applications. And she's really going to share with you best practices and how to prepare that competitive grant. Simona.
Good morning. Thank you, Kevin, for the invitation and for organizing today's program. And thank you, Mariana, for the detailed and well-thought presentation of the STEP program. We truly appreciate your hard work at the GO-Biz office, supporting companies expand globally with this wonderful program. It's a pleasure to be here with you today discussing strategic and export planning in international business with the focus on the California STEP program. As Kevin mentioned, I'm a trade specialist with the Los Angeles SBDC network, where I help manage the LA SBDC Go Global Trade program led by Dr. Ray Berman and hosted by EDC Ventura. We're funded through a cooperative agreement with SBA and a grant from the GO-Biz office. I also serve Southern California and Northern California through the World Trade Centers. And at SBDC, we support businesses access opportunities by connecting them with specialized business assistant training and resources. Our services are free of charge, no cost to your company. And we support companies with preparing, for example, the answer for your STEP application. When it comes to an export plan, it really is an ongoing process. Your export plan is a life document and it's constantly changing based on the market of entry, your distribution strategy, the elements of the export strategy that also include your operation strategy. So today we're going to look at the elements of export planning, and we're going to look at preparation for applying for this STEP grant. I see some questions in the chat about the links, the many links that we're giving you today. Kevin is going to send you a copy of our presentation in a PDF format, and you'll be able to click on those links to access them. So don't worry about taking notes. You will have access to all the information we're giving you today. So I will start my presentation today with a few slides about export planning, market analysis, and then we'll go in detail to talk about preparing your STEP application. So export planning really requires that you start with thinking of main elements of a plan, and any plan, even if it's a plan to apply for the STEP program, a plan, an export plan, or any business plan. You want to start with setting up your goals, building a plan to reach those goals. And in export, you always have to have a plan B, a contingency plan if things don't go the way you plan. And then also give yourself time elements. The STEP program has deadlines. And when you enter a market, there's a lot of deadlines that you have to meet. And then also it's very important to think of what information and data are you basing your assumption about a foreign market on. Those assumptions, that data that you're used to base your assumption are a very important part of planning your export expansion. Start with asking yourself why exporting. What are the benefits of exporting besides increasing your sales and profit? You could reduce the risk related to the changes in domestic economy, seasonal fluctuations, access to the economies of scale, innovation encouragement, and really extending the life cycle, your product life cycles. And then when it comes to planning for export, you have to build your export strategy and always look at your export operation strategy. Very important element of your export planning. So start with why you're exporting, then look at your management commitment, your team. If you're the only person taking care of your export department, then you really need to make the time and dedication to learn about the resources, to build this plan, to understand the cost to enter a new market, and to also accept that it takes a little bit of time to make profit when you start exporting. You have to, if you have a team, you have to explain to your team what exporting is all about and what is the process that you have to follow. And then you really have to look at your business environment and understand the social, the culture, the environment, the social cultural environment of the market you are entering. Look at trade agreements, at the tariffs, at the duties, and really understand the target market, understand your customers overseas. What are their needs? What are their buying behavior? What is the market size? And then you talk to your operation team and you look at your production capacity and making sure that you're able to deliver the same high made in USA quantity, quality of the product in time, and what is the cost of delivering the products. I have a good slide for you to with elements to keep in mind when it comes to thinking of cost. And then looking at your marketing capability, localizing your marketing material and what does that mean? Really building a social media campaign that could be supported by the STEP program. What does it entail to build a social media campaign for a foreign market? And then of course, preparing for receiving orders and negotiation, understand the export documentation and how to close the deal. If you understand what information is needed in the export documentation, you learn how to close the deal. And then fulfilling orders and logistics, you have to be prepared for the costs related to logistics. You have to know the Incoterms. Incoterms are international commercial terms that are published by International Chamber of Commerce, and they are a set of globally recognized terms that clarify rules between buyers and sellers in international and even domestic contracts. So you have to understand the Incoterms when it comes to trading. And then of course, financial management, understanding the cash flow. What are the sources of funding? Like this STEP grant is a great gateway into export promotion into a new market. What happens when you receive a purchase order? Are you ready to sustain that purchase order? What resources do you have to tap? Or what other resources do you have to tap into fulfilling a purchase order, for example? ICEP export credit insurance is a very important program to consider when you're entering new markets and you don't know who your buyer is, but you have to understand what the program is about, what are the qualifications. We'll give you all the resources. I have a slide with many links, and again, you'll have a copy of the slide and you'll be able to access all these links. And then you look at your resources management in your office. What are your resources, your financial and your human resources as well? Let's move to the next slide. If you are interested in e-commerce, and I saw I saw a question in the chat about e-commerce. So when it comes to e-commerce and you are sitting down to plan your strategy, you want to look at all of these elements in this checklist that was put together by Dr. Ray Bowman. That's really a great way of looking at e-commerce. You start with identifying your opportunities in the e-commerce world, knowing that now the world is open unto you through e-commerce, and Kevin's going to have a great event on this topic. You have many integrated solutions out there to support you, but you have to learn how to use those solutions, and you have to understand the cost of those solutions. And then you know, especially for product manufacturers, it is really a huge opportunity to sell direct to consumers. Then you have to think of omni-channel platforms, and you know, you're exposing yourself to millions of potential buyers, but you have to prepare for managing the threats, customer demands, returns, and product support. How are you going to handle that? You must be a good consumer of the services that e-commerce offers. All of these solutions available, you have to learn how to use them. Stick to your budget and service requirements. You have to sit down and put together an e-commerce budget. You have to understand what needs to go in the e-commerce budget, and what does it need for you to drive traffic to the e-commerce platform that you choose. And that is also involves website development on your website. For example, you could use the STEP grant for website globalization, as Mariana said. So what exactly website globalization activities you will be doing to globalize your website? Really think of your payment platform, logistics, and order fulfillment for international through e-commerce. And then you look into the omni-channel selling. If you are deciding to enter a market through Amazon or Tmall or Alibaba, what is the cost of that? What does it entail? Then you look at marketing. I think you all know that e-commerce wants you to spend more money in marketing than you have. So sitting down and making sure you have a social media calendar and a budget for that is very important. And then of course, the e-commerce readiness, building the plan, understanding your customers and who you're targeting, understanding regulations that apply to e-commerce versus traditional exports. And you know, I can't stress enough on understanding all the cost, how important that part is for building your e-commerce plan. Then we'll move into some marketing analysis. And I really don't want to overwhelm you today. I just want to give you some ideas and thoughts for you on how to think globally about markets and think of you know, important questions to ask yourself. The 5 forces analysis is really looking at the competition in the market. It's a framework for you to analyze the competition and really understand who is your competition in the market, what are your threats of substitute in the market, and then understanding those customer market segment. And there's many tools to use on how to create demand. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but all the questions you see on the slides, I'm not going to read them, but just you have a copy of this. Understand what influenced the purchase decision of this customer. Why would they buy from you instead of from another companies? And how often are they going to buy your products? These are questions to consider. And then of course, looking at your strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threat, and really leverage on those strengths that your company has, and always analyze your political, economic, social, cultural, and technological environment from the political to beliefs of the customers and understanding how they use technology and their education level, if needed for using the technology. Trade barriers are very important. Your cost assumption consideration are very important. Your export rules and regulation to follow. There's international standards that you have to follow that relates to quality, health, and safety. Intellectual property is important when you enter a new market. Rules of origin and trade agreements, always consider that when you decide what market you want to enter. And then of course, export compliance. STEP covers export compliance after 5,000. And this compliance is divided in health regulation, environmental laws, product standards, and depending on the industry, depending on the products, you have different regulations to follow. Here are the gray side. I talked about the landed cost. I want you to kind of take a look. The reason you need to understand this slide is because you have to protect your margins. So if you understand every single cost that is related to trade, then you are going to protect your margin. And the main thing that changes when you trade is the cost of goods sold. But you're not protecting only your margin, you also have to protect your distributor margins. So by understanding what Ex works costed are, understanding the Incoterms if you're going to trade FOB or CFR, cost and freight, or if you're adding insurance, who pays for insurance, you'll be able to really understand how to do your price strategy and protect your margins. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're entering a country through e-commerce and you are setting your price strategy, but in that price strategy, you did not consider the fact that you might have a big distributor coming to you, asking you for distribution prices. And now your price on e-commerce is set and you did not think of a margin for future distribution prices in that market. So you have to consider and plan ahead if you are receiving requests for distribution prices in the market besides e-commerce. Again, no meaning to overwhelm you, but these are really important costs that you are considering when you're building your export activities. Here's the slide with many, many resources for you. There's market research resources, there are trade data tools, we have score library, there's free export advice, we have US Commercial Service with their great programs to enter new markets, SBDC with our business support. On the left side, there's the regulatory compliance resources. This is not everything, but I put together for you as many as I could today, just to give you some ideas of resources available to you. Always you have to consider, do you need an export license? What's the jurisdiction of the agency who's going to regulate your products domestically and internationally? So you have to follow the domestic regulatory compliance for your products and then the international market and look at what it takes for you to obtain the product approval in another market. Now we're going to have a few minutes to talk about the California STEP Export Voucher Preparation Tool. This is a program that is built by our partners at Getting to Global, a tech company that provides solutions and programs to trade organizations to multiply the impact of trade organizations. And this tool is to support myself and advisors to scale our consultancy services. So this is a tool that will help me to help you prepare your STEP application, basically. If you look at the selection criteria at the STEP office, how is your application going to be evaluated is really based on how well are you going to answer the questions in the application, how well formulated, complete, and thorough are your answers. Are you ready to export? There's export readiness questions to answer. And then what are your proposed export promotion activities? We're using this tool through the LA SBDC, San Diego SBDC, and World Trade Center, Northern California. So the reason why we build this tool is to really prepare you answer and give you some additional resources to answer this question. Mariana went through this question. These are the 5 questions. Your answers to these questions determine if you are ready to export. So in the tool that we prepare for you, there are additional resources. Let's take a look at one of the questions. What's the demand for your product or service in the foreign market? Well, in order to really answer these questions well, you have to understand how to calculate demand for your product in the market. So how do you do that? Many tools out there to support you that. You can start with Google, just Google market demand for surveillance and security industry, if that's your industry, or you can use search engine optimization tools and social listening tools. So in the preparation tool, we're giving you these additional resources to help you understand how to calculate demand and, and best answer the questions in order to build a competitive application. Also, when it comes to listing your competitive advantage, you have to understand what are the elements and the components of a competitive advantage, your value proposition, target market, and competitors. You understand these 3, you're going to build a great competitive advantage list for the STEP office. And there was something else I wanted to mention. Never forget the made in the USA competitive advantage, the high quality, durable, and safe products. So there's a lot of advantages that you already have in the market by your products being made in the USA. Let's take a quick look at question number 4. Describe the market entry plan, strategy, and goals. In this preparation tool that we have, we really want to help you determine your distribution channel, because your entry strategy is determined by your distribution channel. If you are entering through e-commerce, that is an indirect, it's a direct sell to consumer through e-commerce. If you are looking for a distributor through using the U.S. Commercial Service product, that will be an indirect sales through locating a solid and serious distributor in the market. So in this tool that we prepare, we're giving you these additional resources to help you answer the questions. And let's see, I think I might have skipped a slide. When it comes to building these proposed activity, you have about 2 bullet points and 9 questions to answer for each activity. So if you're choosing an activity, you have to be able to give very complete answers to these questions and also align your activity with your strategy. So if your strategy is direct sell, let's say e-commerce sales to consumer, then your activity will have to reflect your strategy of indirect sell and B2C. We went through these supporting resources. So what are the next steps for you? I know we give you a lot of information. We'll leave a few minutes for question and answer at the end, but I want you to kind of think of the next step, review the program resources that Mariana gave you and determine your eligibility. That's your first step. Are you eligible for STEP? Then decide the export voucher application period based on the implementation deadline and your budget. Remember, you have to invest this money, propose activities, wait for pre-approval, implement the activity, submit a reimbursement report, and then you receive the money back. So this is an investment, and it's a really great support to build your entry into a market. It's the gateway into the market, and from there you can continue to build your success in the market. There is round 1 and round 2. Round 1 has to be implemented between October through December. Round 2 between January through March. So the question I will have for you is which period you will be implementing these activities based on your budget and the deadline. And then you have to decide on the foreign market of entry. How do you do that? We have tools for you to help you determine that. U.S. Commercial Service has great tool for market entry as well. And then you build your export plan, you think of your operation strategy, you prepare the answers to all the questions that Mariana showed you, and especially the export readiness assessment question. You build your export activity plan and you make sure you find that vendor who's going to implement the plan. Who is the third-party vendor who's going to implement your social media campaign? What does it mean to implement a social media campaign? It means design the campaign. It means execute and manage the campaign, deploy that campaign, target specific customers. How do you do that? And then also test the campaign. If the campaign is not working, you might have to make some changes. So those are different parts of building a social media campaign, and you have to itemize. What does it take to design it? What if there's translation included? How much it costs? And you have to itemize the expenses for that particular activity. Prepare competitive answer to the export activity questions. Use the available resources like World Trade Center Northern California, SBDC advisors like myself, U.S. Commercial Service, ICEP. For any questions, contact the STEP office about the application, step@GO-BizCalifornia.gov. And what happens if you are pre-approved? Then you start the implementation process through the third-party vendors that you chose. Be aware of the deadlines. Keep your communication with the STEP office clear regarding any changes to your application. Prepare your reimbursement report and build your export success. I will stop there and we'll leave a few minutes for questions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. A lot of information there. And just once again, we will be sending out the slide decks and the links as a follow-up. So we do have a number of questions. One of them, and Mariana, I think this will be for you. The question was, are STEP grants applicable for consultants or service providers, or is it only for goods exporting?
So it is for both goods and services. It just matters. So if you meet the California STEP eligibility, that makes you eligible. So if you're a for-profit, operating in California with an active status, that will make you meet the basic STEP eligibility. So you would be eligible. The thing I think that gets complicated is for the proposed activity. So for consultants, or service providers. So you have to tell us what it is that you provide specifically and the activities you would propose. So I think we've reimbursed consultants in the past for things like translating their website into another language, international marketing materials. Just because they don't have a physical product doesn't mean that you would not be eligible for STEP. So that's a great question.
Great, thank you.
Could I add one thing to what Mariana said? It's great that thank you, GO-Biz office, for supporting our service companies. They are a big part of our trade process. Things, for example, activities like LinkedIn advertising could apply, globalizing your website. Also, there's B2B, a lot of B2B social media activities for services as well. So those are activities that will apply for services as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another question. How does STEP calculate US content, and does it include the exporter's profit?
So great question. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen very soon. Let's go ahead and share this one. Share screen. Okay, so we have this eligibility section on our website. And if you click exporting goods or services, at least 51% content, it takes you to this formula. Oh, I don't think I'm sharing my screen. Apologies.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you're good now. Thank you.
Okay, so you go to our website under program details, eligibility section. We have exporting goods or services of US origin that have at least 51% US content. You click this link, it takes you to the definition/formula. So we use the US commercial services definition. And then here you would have to calculate whether you meet the US content for either manufactured goods or services using this here. And if the companies have any questions, we tend to refer them to the US Commercial Service just because they're the ones with the formula, and I think they're the one best to answer questions. But again, Simona might be able to help in this section as well. Thank you.
Great.
And that's true. I can help you determine.
You can do anything and everything. So.
Okay, we've got time for just a couple more questions. My entity status with the California Secretary of State is not active. Am I eligible?
Great question. I will share my screen again. Let's go ahead and go to this section now. So under program details, we have the frequently asked questions. Let's go ahead and go here. My entity status with the California Secretary of State is not active. Am I still eligible? So unfortunately, oh, I'm not sharing my screen again. Did it again. Okay. Well, program details, frequently asked questions. You go down to application, entity status with the California Secretary of State is not active. Am I still eligible? No. You would have to have an active status with the Secretary of State in order to be considered. If your company is suspended or forfeited, we have a link here so you can learn how to fix that and make you active again, but you would not be considered until you are active.
Great, thank you. One question came in, is the California STEP program, can those funds be used for reimbursement of Ex-Im Bank credit insurance premiums? And I believe the answer to that is absolutely.
That is correct, yes.
All right. And then, well, we are at 11 o'clock, so we'll call it here. A couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Mariana and Simona for joining us today. This has been fabulous, very fast paced. We will be sending out both presentations, and let me put everybody's contact information in the chat right now. I'll make sure that this is also sent out to everybody via email. Look for an email from me also with a follow-up survey on today's session. Once again, I'd like to thank the SBDC for providing funding and support and to be able to bring this to all of you. And with that, we'll call it a day. And thank you all for joining us. And once again, Simona and Mariana, thank you very much. All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you,
everyone.
Mariana. Thank you, Kevin.
Bye-bye.